the Abraham Accords under Trump 1, and the moving of the embassy to Jerusalem, also under Trump 1, and the permanent recognition of the annexation of the Golan Heights, also under Trump 1, which he will bring up in a second, that he did specifically for the Adelsons. All of those things that the Trump administration did directly led to October 7. And it's like, Gaza is reduced to rubble. Millions of people are basically trying to get back to their homes only to find out that their homes no longer exist. They're trying to rebuild it to the best of their ability. And these came from thousands of miles away. No interest in like rebuilding. No interest in immediately trying to set up like a forensic examination of what took place. Okay? And they're just over here, you know, slapping each other's butts, being like, we did it, we did it. It's like, dude, you did it. Yes. You did the first thing. You did the first thing. You caused, you allowed Israel to destroy Gaza. You allowed Israel to kill so many people. And then now you made Israel stop because it got to a point where the rest of the world was questioning whether they even had a democratic process at all. I can't believe it, man. I just, it feels so depraved. Damn right it's called Hamas is defeated. I mean, objectively untrue in every capacity, by the way. Like, this is, not only is it not a war, it's a genocide. And even beyond the genocide, it's an apartheid, which, of course, is going to create a retaliation no matter what. But also, on top of that, the idea that Hamas is defeated is also stupid because Hamas itself is just a name, okay? The notion that, like, there is no more Palestinian resistance against Israeli occupation is silly. It's stupid. It's not correct. And even in its current formation as Hamas, very clearly they are still in operation. I don't know what these guys, like, I don't understand it. I really don't understand how you can look at the events that have transpired and still have this kind of attitude. You know, I don't understand how you can still maintain this position after 2 years of genocide. Can you explain why people continue to say Hamas was backed by Iran? Asking because I have Democrat friends who keep saying that just to justify what has happened. Yeah, those people are monsters. But the reason why they say that is because Hamas, despite being a Sunni emancipatory group inside of the boundaries of historic Palestine, have gotten logistical help and even in some instances training from Iran, as they are a part of the Iranian axis of resistance against the United States and Israel in the region. But none of that is a justification for Israel's behavior. There is no justification for genocide. That's why the term matters. Except I'm beginning to realize that there are people who will recognize the term and say the term and then simultaneously say, well, you know, maybe some genocides are justifiable. Because I feel like that's where we're getting to. I feel like that's where we're at, where people basically have decided, actually, you know, genocide is real, but also maybe it's justifiable. Terrifying prospect. Anyway, Trump went to Israel and addressed the Israeli Knesset.
We are coming on the air with breaking news from the Middle East. President Trump addressing Israel's parliament right now following the overnight release of all living hostages in Gaza, a moment more than 2 years in the making and a key step in the first phase of the president's path to peace agreed to by both Israel and Hamas. President Trump addressing the parliament there in Israel. Let's listen in.
Of renewed faith and, above all, a day to give our deepest thanks to the Almighty God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
What?
After 2 harrowing years in darkness and captivity, 20 courageous hostages are returning to the glorious embrace of their families, and it is glorious. 28 more precious loved ones are coming home at last to rest in this sacred soil for all of time. And after so many years of...
Hamas originally was put into power by Israel and Bibi in 2006, not Iran. Aren't people? No, that's not true. Hamas was not originally put into power by Israel. No, Hamas has gotten funding from Israel throughout time, but that doesn't mean, key takeaway, don't mess with Jews. Pickle Rick 305 says, key takeaway, don't mess with Jews. Brother, how do you not even exhibit a little bit of a fraction of shame after 2 years and you still actively connect Israel's actions with Jews and Judaism? It's such an idiotic proposition that literally leads to unimaginable amounts of anti-Semitism. Okay? It's so stupid. It's like if there were, you know, if I was running around being like, I'm Muslim, and if you don't ISIS proves, don't mess with the Muslims. Al-Qaeda proves, don't mess with the Muslims. Like if I was running around saying that and then turning around and being like, well, if you criticize ISIS or Al-Qaeda, seemingly you are Islamophobic. It's insane. As far as the first guy's point that he was responding to, okay. No, it's not true. Hamas wasn't put into power by Israel. Hamas won elections because Israel's lapdogs in the Fatah party were roundly despised by the Palestinian population at that point. It was America that pushed for elections, even though Fatah and the PA said, let's not do elections yet because people don't trust us. This was in the aftermath of the so-called peace process that had led to Israel basically cutting up the West Bank, which was illegally occupied by Israel and is still illegally occupied by Israel. And the only the concessions that the Fatah group had given to Israel, it only led to more death and more destruction and more domination in the eyes of Palestinians. So understandably, they were looking for an alternative outcome. They were looking for an alternative that was seen as an uncorruptible force. And they turned, as nation states that are dominated by a colonial power often do, to a more fundamentalist group. Hamas was willing to engage with Israel in armed conflict and also was initially cut out from the Muslim Brotherhood. So they were a little bit more on the fundamentalist side. And therefore, they were seen as more honest than Fatah, which was secular. It's that simple. That's the reason why people voted for Hamas over Fatah, which, by the way, they didn't even vote for Hamas over Fatah by like massive numbers or anything. They got the plurality of votes after America pushed for an election. Shouts out to George W. Bush. And then America tried to lead further with a coup, a very violent coup, which led to Hamas taking over and establishing complete control over the Gaza Strip because they forcibly pushed out Fatah after a bunch of Fatah people went and straight up tortured a bunch of Hamas people. They apprehended them. They tortured them. They lost that coup d'etat. It failed. And then Hamas established full control over the Gaza Strip. In that process, however, Benjamin Netanyahu and other groups within Israel saw Hamas as a beneficial party to their grand design because of their Islamist position. They could just easily, with ease, they could just present the Palestinians as like barbaric, fundamentalists, jihadists, whatever, right? Because they know exactly how the rest of the world treats Muslims that are even remotely devout. Not only that, but also their willingness, Hamas's willingness to also battle against Israel militarily, resist against Israel militarily, made it so that Israel could always use that as a future justification to engage in sieges on the Gaza Strip. And this is not my assessment at all. This is what Benjamin Netanyahu himself openly stated. But Israel's funding of Hamas came way, way later. Hamas started in like 1978 as a charity group, as an Islamic charity group that was a subsidiary of the Muslim Brotherhood in the region. It became a political party with a charter in 1988. And that charter wasn't like a full-blown real charter either. They formalized their charter in 2018 or 2017. But the ideally funded Hamas is also incorrect.
Unceasing war and endless danger. Today, the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace, a land and a region that will live, God willing, in peace for all eternity. This is not only the end of a war. This is the end of an age of terror and death and the beginning of the age of faith and hope and of God. It's the start of a grand concord and lasting harmony for Israel and all the nations of what will soon be a truly magnificent region. I believe that so strongly. This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East. I want to express my gratitude to a man of exceptional courage and patriotism, whose partnership did so much to make this momentous day possible. You know who I'm talking about. There's only one, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Bibi, please stand up.
The only place in Israel where there will be claps, and even then is controversial, by the way. There is no other place in Israel where you could just be like, and Benjamin Netanyahu, he's so good, and Israelis will go, yeah, that's right. Do the Israelis really see this as a win? I don't know. I don't know where Israeli society is at right now. It does seem like there was at least a lot of like liberal Zionists, for example, that definitely wanted their family members to be extracted and released from captivity. So in that respect, like it's understandable that they are celebrating. I mean, that doesn't mean that they were upset about. That doesn't mean that they were upset about what took place in Gaza, because there's plenty of polling that shows that they were very aware and did not care about it at all. Hostages returned and lefties still find something to talk bad about? Wait, what do you mean? Dude, I think this is part of the reason why Donald Trump did this, by the way, so that like some of the dumbest motherfuckers on the planet could just be like, why are you still upset? It's like, first of all, the ceasefire is good. Okay. Not only do I say it's good, but I'm glad it's happening and I hope it continues and I hope it stays. Okay. And not only that, but also Donald Trump did this and Joe Biden refused to do so. So that's important to note. Having said that, if you don't analyze why October 7 even happened to begin with, then you arrive at this kind of idiotic position where you're like, what do you mean? Hamas started a war and then they lost it, and Trump is allowing them to live, allowing those dirty Palestinians to live. Like this is not a cause for celebration at the end of the day. This is now 80 years of occupation, okay? Until there is true emancipation for the Palestinians, until there's a sovereignty for Palestinians, or Palestinians have autonomy over their own lives, there is still much more work to be done. Now, the question remains, is Trump the guy to do that? I don't think so. The ceasefire simply stops the genocide, which is good, and it should be praised, and I have. It's so strange to me that people make it seem as though that's not the case. Seconds after announcement that all living hostages were released, Israelis are starting genocidal demands, calling to erase Gaza. Now all is left is complete annihilation. Now the hostages are home. We can erase Gaza. Yallah, it's time. Nuclear bomb on Gaza. After 2 years, no hostages. Now we need to crush and destroy all of Gaza. It's time to storm Gaza. Oh yeah, I mean there are some. I don't know by and large where Israeli society is right now. There are a lot of voices that wanted to obviously complete the ethnic cleansing of Gaza. There were a lot of voices in Israel that wanted this. Some are. I will say this much. I thought I would hear more opposition from Itamar Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and a lot of the other factions that are full-blown like permanent military occupation, permanent ethnic cleansing in Gaza, like people that have very openly declared that they want to complete the genocide. They have been noticeably absent from the conversation. That is interesting. Okay? I don't know if that's because Donald Trump said, it's done, it's over, shut the fuck up. Bro, they did. Smotrich said they want to immediately go back in with full force. No, but like even like disbanding the government is not even a thing that they're entertaining at this moment. Maybe they will. Right? But also on top of that, their fans, like their supporters are not throwing as big as a fuss. Maybe it's because the media is not covering it. I don't know. Maybe it's because the media is not covering it. Only time will tell where where Israeli society broadly moves. But so far, what I have seen broadly is just a celebration that the hostages have been returned.
And he is not easy, I want to tell you. He's not the easiest guy to deal with, but that's what makes him great. That's what makes him great.
Yeah, like they're not doing like the right to rape riot style. They're not doing that shit that they were doing last time when like the Israeli government tried to like prosecute 6 concentration camp guards, and then they basically were like, nah, that's unacceptable. They should be able to rape the Palestinians to death.
Thank you very much, baby. Great job. And let me also convey my tremendous appreciation for all of the nations of the Arab and Muslim world that came together to press Hamas to set the hostages free.
Will they clap for the Arabs?
To send them home. We had a lot of help. We had a lot of help from a lot of people that you wouldn't suspect. And I want to thank them very much for that. It's an incredible triumph for Israel and the world to have all of these nations working together as partners in peace. And it's pretty unusual for you to see that, but it happened in this case. This was a very unusual point in time, a brilliant point in time. Generations from now, this will be remembered as the moment that everything began to change, and change very much for the better. Like the USA right now, it will be the golden age of Israel and the golden age of the Middle East. It's going to work together. I'd like to thank several great American patriots for their invaluable help in getting something done that almost everyone thought was absolutely impossible. We were wasting our time. So many people said, you're just wasting your time. But we weren't, because we had talented people working with us, and we had people that loved your country, and frankly, people that loved the region. They loved the Middle East. I want to thank my friend Steve Witkoff. You know, Steve was chosen by me. He never did this before, but I knew him as a few things. He was a great businessman, but I know a lot of great businessmen, to be honest with you. He had tremendous negotiating skills, but I know a lot of people that negotiate pretty well, although it is an art. But there are people that can negotiate pretty well. But most importantly with Steve, he's just a great guy. Everybody loved him. Everybody. I mean, I know some.
I'm telling you, so many Israelis are secretly seething or coping that this isn't the end. The vast majority want to continue the genocide. Everyone right now is just waiting and seeing if this is real or another Trump Netanyahu scheme. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen enough. Maybe some Israelis, maybe some liberal Zionists at least like have recognized that this was looking real bad. Yeah. As Trump basks in all the adulation and praise for getting the Israeli hostages out, Democrats should think long and hard about how Biden could have gotten this deal too, for reasons we may never fully understand, chose not to exert the power and pressure he had to do it. I said it so many fucking times, man. So many goddamn times. Like, they could have done it. They didn't do it. And they got punished for it. And now Trump, after continuing it for an extended period of time himself, for like 9 months, pushed it over the finish line. Yeah. Matt Duss says Biden had multiple ways to pressure Netanyahu, including by publicly blaming him for repeatedly tanking ceasefire talks. Biden chose to give him political cover and material to continue the war. No U.S. president is as helpless as former Biden officials seem to want to pretend. Because now you got like Biden world trying to come out and act as though, you know, their hands were tied or some shit. Arab mediators literally kept begging Biden to publicly blame Netanyahu for sabotaging the ceasefire talks. A Saudi diplomat told me Biden didn't budge as he wanted to be remembered as the most pro-Israel president. Today, Israelis were applauding Trump's humiliation of Biden enthusiastically. Like, it is an abject failure of epic proportion in every way, shape, and form. Dan Shapiro says, former U.S. ambassador to Israel, Dan Shapiro says, the ability to pressure Netanyahu was related to Netanyahu's total embrace of Trump and the complete lack of any domestic political blowback to the president for doing it. Biden did not have either of those conditions. Bullshit. Biden would have survived the political blowback because only a majority of Republican voters support arms shipments to Israel, and they were voting for Trump anyway. Majority of Dem and independent voters have dropped Israel. You are stuck in another era. The American public has moved. And not only has the American public firmly moved at this point, they were already moving at the time. And I showed the polling on the matter over and over again. I showed it so many times. There were poll after poll showed that Democratic Party voters, or people who were not just like reliable Dem voters, but people who had voted for the Democrats in the past, or people who would consider voting for the Democrats, said that any sort of initiative that atrocity or denying weapons transfers to Israel would be seen as a benefit, and they would have absolutely voted. They would have absolutely voted for the Democrats if that happened. It was one of the many different reasons that the Democrats lost. It wasn't maybe it wasn't the most consequential, but it was just another relitigation of the problem at the core of the Democratic Party. This was emblematic of the major problem that the Democrats had in the election cycle, which is their refusal to listen to their base. Okay? They thought they could win by continuing to support Israel. They thought they could win in spite of Israel's unlimited child murder that many Americans could see. It is remarkable. And it is also additionally remarkable that they're still trying to find ands, ifs, and buts in this process to make it seem as though there was no other option. It wasn't just about Michigan, okay? Directly for Michigan, it played a major role, but it wasn't just about Michigan. It was for the entire country, because their inability to listen to reason, to listen to the crowd on the issue of Gaza, okay, was emblematic of the problems that many people saw with the Democrats. They would not listen. They would not actually try to separate themselves from the Republicans on this. And it caused people to stay home. This is precisely the reason why, even if all of the third-party voters actually all united and voted for the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris still would have lost the election. This is why the idea that, like, oh, third-party voters actually cost the election to Kamala Harris is stupid, especially this time around, because it wasn't as close as the previous Hillary Clinton-Trump bout looked like. It was not just Gaza, but Gaza was definitely significant. Do you blame people for not coming out to vote? Or wait, what? Where is this? Do you blame people for not coming out to vote, or were they justified? This is silly. Okay? In a democratic process, you have to abide by the wishes of your voters. Okay? There will never be a moment where I say, oh, these guys actually fucked up. They didn't vote. It does not matter. Okay? It's the party that fucks up. It's the party that actually does not play its cards right. That's what democracy is about. That's what democracy is. They are supposed to motivate you to get out and vote. I always urge people on the importance of voting. Okay, you will never catch me saying, don't vote, voting sucks, anything like that. I'm not one of those guys. I never have been, and I never will be. Okay, it's the most significant, most consequential, least significant thing you can do. Okay, voting is very important. Having said that, the notion that people are supposed to vote for you due to harm reduction narratives that you didn't even actually do a decent job describing is a demonstrable failure. And it has been a demonstrable failure. The expectation that people are supposed to make up their own minds about how awful the Republican Party is and then move to vote for the alternative, it doesn't work unless people actually experience it. But even then, seemingly, if the Democrats don't present a counter narrative, if Democrats don't put up a fight against the Trump administration, then it still doesn't work. I mean, look at the Democratic Party's polling right now. Look at their approval ratings currently. They're fucking underwater. Yes, and this obviously leads me to Kamala Harris also saying this. Harris slams protesters during book tour. You want to talk about legacy? Let's talk about the legacy of mass deportations, of not voting, and Donald Trump. Liberals will cling on to this battle forever, and they'll say, like, you guys fucked up. You guys fucked up. They don't understand. That's not how democracy works. The failure is on the party. They got billions of dollars, man. They got billions of dollars.
I'm not president. And if you want to talk about legacy, let's talk about the legacy of mass deportation of people not voting and Donald Trump.
This video pissed me off so much yesterday. I yelled and scared the fuck out of my mom. She was not pleased with me. I don't know. I don't know how to like explain this to people. I think a lot of people who are liberals, they wanna think about this from like team sports perspectives, not realizing that Kamala Harris's reactionary position, advancing Biden's position on border policy, a right-wing border policy, also played a role in people assuming that the Republicans were right on the border stuff. If only there was a guy who just kept fucking repeating this even before the election cycle. Do you guys remember, even at the early stages of Trump's mass deportation initiatives, you had a bunch of people, including Chris Murphy, try to present this as like, we're the ones who are strong on deportations, not the Republicans. Chris Murphy went out and straight up said, Biden was deporting 15,000 migrants when he was in charge. Trump is only deporting 5,000 migrants. That's a crazy thing to say. Like, nobody thinks you're the mass deportation party. Everybody just looks at you and thinks that you're indecent, that you're a liar, that you got caught in a lie, that you are hypocritical when they see that. There's no moral reason to obviously abide by the media environment born out of hysteria that the Republicans have fucking designed. And there is certainly no reason to hand it to the Republicans on any of these issues, especially because it's not real. And we're seeing what happens when a not real issue becomes a major point of contention. And then the solution is this incredibly militarized ICE engaging in the unjustifiable and immoral practice of mass deportations, kidnapping people from the side of the street, demanding people's papers. That's where we're at. It's so fucking depressing, dude. It's so depressing because if Democrats don't understand that they cannot do this. Here, yeah. In the first week, Trump removed 7,300 people on average. Biden was removing 15,000 a week. Under Biden, 72% of ICE arrests were criminals. Under Trump, it dropped to around 50%. Trump is removing less people and less criminals. These guys are terrible at everything. January 30th, 2025. Like, that's a unacceptable. That is a person who looked at the outcome of this election and still didn't understand why they lost. Now, of course, now they're singing a different tune. Now they realize, like, oh, we have to actually present an opposition to the mass deportations, right? Yeah, this is from February 6, 2025. A Harris campaign organizer says senior officials ordered them to erase voters who asked about Gaza, marking emails as no response so they'd be removed from outreach. No engagement, no persuasion, just ignored. The only clowns are the ones who decided to abdicate on this. On the Gaza stuff, once again, like, I'm trying to talk about this in a more holistic fashion, okay? This is the problem at the heart of the Democratic Party. Their endless need for bipartisanship, their endless need for compromise against an uncompromising and increasingly reactionary force is causing this country to move in the direction of fascism. We're there right now. And there are still some in the consulting class that actively try to do this, where they're like, no, we have to consistently capitulate the right-wing framing on issues. You know, funding the police, a strong border policy, like trans issues, maybe even gay issues later down the line. If Republicans dominate on the trans stuff as they have been, they're going to eventually start, and they have already started, moving towards like undermining Obergefell or doing a whole bunch of other shit, like not allowing gay couples to like adopt children and stuff like that. All you do in that situation is basically tell everybody that is listening that the Republicans are right. The Republicans are right. We're wrong. They're right. But we'll be better than they are. We'll be stronger on this issue than they are. You cannot outflank the right on any of this stuff. You can't. You have to fight the right on this stuff. Not only because they're wrong, the Republicans are wrong on these issues, and you should have a sense of decency, but also because if you do concede, people just look at you and go, oh, so they were right all along. Okay, I'm going to vote for the right party.
Negotiators that are so good, but you wouldn't have had peace.
They just wanted to win the election without the left. They fucking hate people like you. They hate the anti-war crowd. They hate the economic populace. They want 100 million Ezra Kleins. It was so obvious. It wasn't a mistake. No, I know. But the problem is you can't win an election like that. You just simply can't, because it's not just me or my audience. That's why it's such a silly fucking argument, because many in this community still did end up voting for Kamala Harris. But it's people that have never heard of me, people that don't know who the fuck I am at all, that also have the same anger and resentment. People that go, okay, what am I supposed to do with this information? Okay, that's it. Motherfuckers that are sitting on the couch are not watching me. Okay, motherfuckers who choose the couch over the ballot on the day of the election, they're not tuning in to my broadcast. Okay, the people that are tuning into my broadcast are already actively tuned in all the time, even when politics is not so fun or interesting. Those are the people who are the most tuned into politics.
In the Middle East, you would be in World War III right now with some of these guys. Everybody loves Steve, and they respect him, and they somehow can relate to him. I've known him for many years, and I've seen it over and over again.
On the border, the choice is simple.
Here you have there's friend of the show Ofer Kasif, and also what's the other dude's name? I'm always forgetting his name, but the two anti-Zionists are, the two like actual Ofer Kasif and Ayman Odeh, the two actually anti-Zionist Knesset members that were sitting in that meeting, stand up and show they stand up and they have placards that read, I believe, "Recognize Palestine." Ofer Kasif was reading the Ilan Pappé book, and Ayman Odeh is a Palestinian citizen of Israel who gets elected by other Palestinians living in Israel. He doesn't count as an anti-Zionist voice. I mean, regardless, he had a placard up that said "Recognize Palestine," and this was acceptable. Israeli lawmakers were removed after protesting during Trump's speech at the Knesset. Ayman Odeh, of Palestinian origin, held up a banner reading "Recognize Palestine." Left-wing lawmaker Ofer Kasif also tried to hold up a banner but was forcibly removed from the chamber. Odeh says, "They kicked me out of the Knesset just for raising the simplest demand, one that the whole international community agrees on. Recognize the state of Palestine. Recognize the simple truth. There are two peoples here, and no one is going anywhere."
I was kicked out of the Knesset for raising the simplest demand, one of the whole international community agrees on. Recognize the state of Palestine. Recognize the simple truth. There are two peoples here and no one is going anywhere.
Yeah. The attack on the Communist Party has been multifaceted. Kasif and other ministers of the Knesset have been suspended without pay on multiple occasions since the war for extended periods of time. Yeah. Yep. They kicked them out.
Knesset member Kasif out of the hall. Please expel him immediately.
Sorry for that, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Please.
That was very efficient.
Oh, he loves that shit. Oh my God. He fucking loves that shit, dude. Oh, you can see he is horny for that. He's like, I want that. Wish I could do that to Chuck Schumer.
So back to Steve. But I tell one story because he...
Bro, they should make him the president or the prime minister of Israel, honestly. Like, I'm not kidding when I say this. He is more popular in Israel than he is in America, okay? His approval ratings in Israel are far higher than they are in the United States of America. Go fuck up their healthcare, bro. Go fuck up their healthcare. They can have him. Stay there, please. Don't come back. It's just so crazy because, like, once again, Israel has, one, government-funded abortion, universal health care, universal college, and we foot the bill for their almost entirety of their defense and offense, of course. So they can spend it on their own social programs. Now, obviously, they've like had to scale back a little bit in recent years because of the ongoing genocide. But it's crazy. Just like, go fuck their shit up, dude. Why are you fucking our shit up? It seems like they like you more there. You can keep him.
Was so involved, and then we called in Jared. We need that brain on occasion. We got to get Jared in here. We got to get a certain group of people. But Steve started this all by himself. I call him Henry Kissinger, who doesn't leak. Okay? Henry is a big leaker. He leaked. Steve doesn't leak. Steve just wants to get the job done. He wants to do what's right. But I'll give you just a quick story because, as you know, he's working on the war with Russia and Ukraine, a war that would have never happened if I were president. A shame. 7,000 young soldiers a week are being killed. More than that this last week. It's a shame. Should have never happened. But it did happen, and we won the race, and I took over this horrible war that's been raging, and I thought it would be easily settled. I thought it was a hell of a lot easier than doing what we just did very successfully with Israel and a lot of other people. But this came first, and we'll get that one. But I set up a meeting for him to meet with President Putin, thinking it would be a 15 or a 20-minute meeting. Steve had no idea about Russia, had no idea about Putin too much, didn't know too much about politics, wasn't that interested. He was really good at real estate, but he had that quality that I was looking for, and I didn't see it around in too many ways. And I set up the meeting with Putin, and I called. I said, is Steve finished yet? That was about a half an hour into the meeting. No, sir, he's not. He's still inside. This is in Moscow. I said, well, how's he doing? I don't know, sir. He's still inside. I called up an hour later. Let me speak to Steve. Sir, he's still with Putin. He's with President Putin. I said, wow, that's a long meeting, 1 hour. I called up an hour later, he was still with Putin. 3 hours later, he was still with Putin. 4 hours later, he started to get the word that he was going to be coming out soon. And in 5 hours, he came out. I said, what the hell were you talking about for 5 hours? And he says, just a lot of interesting things. We're talking about a lot of interesting things, including what he went in there for, but you can't talk about it for 5. You can talk about it for a certain period of time, and you know what you're getting. But that's a talent. That's a talent where you can do that. Most people I'd send in, number one, they wouldn't be accepted. Number two, if they were, the meeting would last 5 minutes. And that's what happens with Steve. Everybody loves him. They love him on this side. They love him on the other side. And he really is. He's a great negotiator because he's a great guy. So thank you very much, Steve, very much. And let me also give a very special thanks to someone who truly loves Israel. In fact, loves it
We already saw this
so
part.
much that my daughter converted.
Oh, wait, no, we didn't see this part.
I didn't know this was going to happen, and Ivanka's here.
Converted to Israel? No, yeah, she converted. She's Israel now. She's Israel. She Israel high. No, I guess she converted to Judaism. I didn't know that.
And Bibi, you do know this was not in the cards for me. You understand that. And she is so happy, and they are so happy. At least I think they're happy. If they're not, we have a big story, right? No, they have a great marriage, and they get along great. They're best
She's
friends.
being converted
They
to
have
the
a very
first Trump
special
admin? I didn't know that.
relationship. But Jared has been so helpful. He really did something very special. He established the Abraham Accords with a group of very wonderful people. I like calling it the...
I will never not say this because it must be repeated over and over again, even though no one will fucking say it, even on the Democratic Party. The only person who I've gotten to agree to it at the time was AOC. The Abraham Accords under Trump 1 and the moving of the embassy to Jerusalem also under Trump 1. And the permanent recognition of the annexation of the Golan Heights, also under Trump 1, which he will bring up in a second, that he did specifically for the Adelsons. All of those things that the Trump administration did directly led to October 7, okay? Directly. And it's crazy that if it wasn't so uniparty, if the pro-Israel position wasn't the fucking uniparty position, Democrats would have presented that as a reason. But they chose not to because Biden is a fucking ultra-Zionist. Like, even more so, I criticize Obama all the time for the way he also treated Israel. But post-Obama, the shift to allowing Israel to basically run all of the Middle Eastern policy by the Trump administration was so fucking obvious. It was so overt. They just straight up were like, nope, we're letting them drive the car. And it's a damn shame that the Biden administration did not even reverse that trajectory one bit.
Abraham Accords, because people...
God. Abraham.
That, right? Abraham. It's so cool. It's so much sort of nicer, you know, the Abraham versus the Avraham. I just don't want to sound too sanctimonious when I do it, so, you know, I sort of split it up. This way we keep everybody happy. But we have some very great talent, and they have no excuses for anything that's taken place, because we had some unbelievably good people working on this. And then you're going to add a man named Marco Rubio, who is also here. That's right. And I have a prediction that Marco will go down, I mean this, as the greatest Secretary of State in the history of the United States. I believe that.
They all supported too. Plus, it was a part of Hillary Clinton's agenda in 2008. She said, I personally consider Jerusalem the eternal and indivisible capital of Israel. So, of course, they see no problem. It don't matter, okay? Because guess what? Obama didn't do it, okay? And any kind of Clinton would have done this too is irrelevant, because Obama didn't do it. As a matter of fact, Barack Obama did JCPOA, which was against the wishes of Israel. Trump did do it. And he openly, in this speech to the Israeli Knesset, says why he did do it. He straight up is like, Sheldon Adelson, Miriam Adelson, they give me a lot of money. I love money. They give me so much money. I tell him I'm the president, and Sheldon still shows up at my doorstep. I say, all right, Mr. Sheldon, I'll still talk to you. Even after executing the JCPOA and kickstarting the process of maybe somewhere down the line normalizing relations with Iran, Obama on his way out still gave a $38 billion package to Israel, okay? $38 billion, 3.8 every year for 10 years. And that never stopped Israel from saying he's a Jew hater, okay? So there is no reason. There is no fucking reason whatsoever to ever abide by whatever kind of framework Israel wants us to abide by. It doesn't make sense.
I believe, and he and I, you know, we really fought it out. You remember, he was tough. He was nasty. Who the hell thought this was going to happen, Marco, right? And now I'm saying he's going to go down
Obama's
as the
in
greatest.
here.
He will.
Obama, I will
He
never
was
forgive you.
always-
Damn, okay, sorry.
He was always smart and sharp, and people respect him. And then we have somebody who's young, but an unbelievable leader. I saw it a long time ago, and he's turned out to be even better than we thought. Right, Susie? I think even better. And that's Pete Hegseth, who is our Secretary of War, formerly Secretary of Defense. And as you know, we decisively won World War I. We decisively won World War II
World War
decisively. And everything in between and everything before it, we won everything. And then they had the brilliant idea of changing the name from war, you know, it was war, to defense. And with that went a certain thinking. And we fought in a very politically correct way after that. We always had the strongest military, and now we have a stronger military than we've ever had before. Because of my first term, I've totally rebuilt the military, every aspect of it. But we have, if you think, we settled 8 wars in 8 months. I'm now including this one, by the way, if that's okay. They may say, well, that was quick, because yesterday I was saying 7, but now I can say 8. The hostages are back. The hostages are back. It is a good feeling. Isn't that nice to say? You know, I just said the hostage. First time I said the hostages are back. It feels so good to say it. But when you settle 8 wars in 8 months, that means you don't like war. Everyone thought I was going to be brutal. In fact, I remember Hillary Clinton during a debate, she said, look at him, he's going to go into war with everybody. And actually, she said, he's got a personality that's all about war. No, my personality actually is all about stopping wars, and it seems to work. It seems to work. But it also means this name change and our attitude that we're not going to go into a war, but if we do, we're going to win that war like nobody has ever won a war before. We will not be politically correct, but we're not going to be there. And I think, you know, as you mentioned, Bibi, through strength,
Bibi.
and that's what it's all about. The United States has the greatest and most powerful military in the, right now, history of the world. I can tell you we have weapons that nobody's ever dreamt of. I only hope we never have to use them. I rebuilt the military. I was proud to do it, but some of the things I hated to do. I hated certain of the weapons because the level of power is so enormous. It's so dangerous, so bad. But we have to do what we have to do. We make the best weapons in the world, and we've got a lot of them. And we've given a lot to Israel, frankly. And, I mean, Bibi would call me so many times, can you get me this weapon, that weapons, some of them I never heard of, Bibi, and I made them, but we'd get them here, wouldn't we? And they are the best. They are the best. But you used them well. It also takes people that know how to use them. And you obviously...
At least we got an American president that's also getting a standing ovation in Israel for once, as opposed to the fucking Israeli president or prime minister constantly getting a standing ovation in America. You know, hollow victories. Ben Shapiro was in the audience, just left the Knesset after witnessing President Trump's history-making speech. Show forthcoming. Again, stay there, man. Honestly, just stay there. I don't know why you're coming back. Just stay there. It seems like you like it more. Same with Trump. Fucking stay there, guys. Actually, let us sort our situation out over here. Clearly, we just care more about everything that's going on here. Everyone there seems a lot happier.
They used them very well, but so many that Israel became strong and powerful, which ultimately led to peace. That's what led to peace. So as we celebrate today, let us remember how this nightmare of depravity and death all began. 2 years ago, on the eve of the Simchat Torah holiday, thousands of innocent Israeli civilians were attacked by terrorists, and one of the most evil and heinous desecrations of innocent life the world has ever seen, the worst slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. The cruelty of October 7th struck to the core of humanity itself. Nobody could believe what they were witnessing. The United States of America grieved alongside you, and we mourned for our own citizens who were so viciously taken that day. And to all the families whose lives were forever changed by the atrocities of that day, and all of the people of Israel, please know that America joins you in those 2 everlasting vows: never forget and never again.
Greatest president in the history of USA for Israel, maybe? Because, like, it is pretty wild. This Trump's, once again, I'm going to repeat this, Trump's popularity in America is significantly worse than his popularity in Israel. Okay? And there's good reason for that. It's because none of the actual things that he said he was going to fix, which, you know, obviously was unbelievable, like the cost of living crisis or whatnot, he has actually fixed it all. And the only promises that he followed through on are actually worsening the cost of living crisis. He's implementing mass deportations. He's funding ICE. He's trying to erode due process and for the First Amendment. These are all things that are creating an environment of instability. All of the tariff stuff that he has done has also consistently created market volatility. The only thing he's actually followed through on is making the tax cuts for the wealthy permanent. And in an effort to make that justifiable, what has he done? He's cutting $800 billion in Medicaid funding. $800 billion. 16 million Americans are going to be kicked off of their coverage. Do you feel like that's winning? If it's winning, have you experienced it? Have you actually experienced it? Meanwhile, he's also sending the military domestically, deploying the American military over and over again. Where is the winning? Where is the winning? Seriously, buzzword bingo next stream? What do you mean buzzword bingo? Why is that chatter not responding? Like, you got nothing. The only thing he's given you is red meat, being like, oh, the 40 transgender NCAA athletes are no longer allowed to compete. Okay. Did that actually fix any of your problems? Calm your tits? My titties are calm, chatter. My titties are so goddamn calm. You can see my tits are calm. Does it look like I'm losing my mind in any capacity? Does it perhaps make you feel better if you think you have some kind of aesthetic victory here? If you imagine that the quote unquote lib is being owned in this situation? Is that what it is? In your mind, you're like, well, he's owning you right now. He's making you upset. Yeah, I'm upset because I care for every American, regardless of their background. Okay? I care about Americans living in rural areas that actually voted for Donald Trump, who are going to lose the remaining hospital that they had that is already in a state of dire disrepair now that Medicaid funding is being cut. I care about those people. I care about you more than you care about yourself. You found yourself in this situation where you think, oh, well, as long as we are dominating our enemies, the enemies that I've built up in my mind, the real enemies, not the actual establishment, not the financial elite, not the capital owning class, not the landlords that constantly raise rent. The actual elite in my mind is transgender working class Americans or undocumented migrants. Those are the real villains. Trump cares too? I don't think he does. I don't know why you think he still does. He doesn't even do a good enough job claiming he cares, you know? It's just shocking to me that there are still people that truly think that Donald Trump cares. Yeah, here, you want to know what he cares about? Here, this is a great video. I saw this earlier. Okay? Here it is. This is what he cares about. Just Trump riding around in his golf club telling rich members your taxes are coming down while the government is shut down with thousands losing their jobs, people losing health insurance, and kids going hungry. Totally normal stuff.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Your taxes are coming down. See, everyone's happy, honey.
That's awesome.
We've done a good job. Yeah, we'll run through the 9 holes.
Hasan, I hate being a leftist so bad we keep taking L's. Listen, at the end of the day, what you have are your morals and what you have are your convictions. Okay? That's it. Stop being a fucking doomer. Stop being a doomer. No matter what happens, you have to keep pushing, okay? In spite of the endless amounts of smears, fear-mongering, no matter what it is, you have to keep pushing. Your cause is just, and you're fighting to help others. Okay? You're not doing this so that you can feel good, or you're not doing this so that people turn around and say, wow, you're so cool. Or at least I'm not. And I hope you're not either.
From October 7th until this week, Israel has been a nation at war, enduring burdens that only a proud and faithful people could withstand. It was a very tough period of time. For so many families across this land...
Think about it this way. Even the fact that Donald Trump made the boss call finally after 9 months of allowing Israel to go crazy mode and do a genocide and refuse to give aid to the Palestinian population. The very fact that they had to put an end to it, and here's the hoping that that ceasefire stands, is because of the pressure applied by people like yourself, the broad awareness initiatives, the mass mobilization, the protests, the flotillas, the demands for boycotts, sanctions, and divestment. This would not have happened. So to the millions of Palestinians who have survived this Holocaust, remember, your voices did matter. Okay? Now, obviously, it's not over. It's far from over. But if the rest of the world, if the world continued to look the other way, do you think Israel would have stopped? Do you think America would have told Israel to stop? They wouldn't have. They would not have stopped at all. Hassan, I don't think you're right about the ceasefire being the consequence of pressure from the left. The current admin in Israel do not care at all about the pressure from the left. Brother, I'm not saying it's the pressure from the left. I'm saying it's pressure in general. You have to remember, not every single person that was out in the fucking streets are card-carrying leftists or socialists or Marxists or communists. What are you talking about? It's pressure from everyone. It was the pressure at the international level in Western liberal democracies that caused Western liberal democracies to turn around and say, okay, we got to do something about this. None of those guys would have ever wanted to turn Israel into a pariah state. If it was up to them, they would continue doing business as usual politics. It's not the quote-unquote pressure from the left, but the left was there from the beginning. Hassan, I thought you were specifically saying it was the result of people like that chatter who continue advocacy. That's why I say from the left. Yes, people like that do matter, because when it was actually consequential, far more consequential than it is now, to say the truth about what Israel was doing, it was the left that was out in the streets protesting. They lost their jobs. They got slandered, smeared. Their financial opportunities were cut short, but they didn't stop. And as time moved on, more and more people came to that recognition. Do you understand? So yes, the left did actually fucking play a formative role in this. There is no guarantee. I'm not trying to be bad faith here, but I don't see a causational relationship between activists and the ceasefire. Okay. Do you think Trump would have just simply decided, all right, now is the time, out of nowhere? Or do you think there was immense pressure that people placed on their own governments to do something about Israel, so much so that even Donald Trump decided, okay, Israel has lost the world, in his own words? Where did that come from? Where did that start? How did that start? If this wasn't consequential, the government would not have, under the Biden administration, arrested 3,500 student protesters. They would not have. If it wasn't consequential, the British government would not have made Palestine Action a prescribed terrorist organization and continue to arrest people for the crime of supporting Palestine Action. There is a reason why these guys wanted to implement a chilling effect on protests, because every time, if it wasn't consequential, they would not have bought TikTok and handed it off to one of the IDF's largest singular donors, Larry Ellison. It is weird cope and maybe skepticism to refuse to recognize what Zionists recognize every day and move to implement every day. If it wasn't for mass awareness initiatives and mass mobilization, it wouldn't have gotten to this point. Most importantly, of course, if it wasn't for the bravery of the Palestinians, who were at the site of their own demise, instantly trying to show the depravity of Israel to all who would pay attention to it. If it wasn't for any of that, people would you think Western leadership would be forced to reckon with the incalculable death toll to at least offer symbolic gestures to make it seem as though, there is a pressure valve here. We're trying to release it. I don't agree with this characterization of the internationals completely morally apathetic when Macron's France, for example, recognizes Palestinian statehood that is not primarily the result on the streets activism? So what do you think it's the result of? Macron is actually a great example. Macron lost all of his influence at the domestic level because of his austerity measures, and the only part of his governance that remained was foreign policy. Why did Macron take an anti-Israel stance? Perhaps it has something to do with the mass mobilization and his opposition being a more popular figurehead with Mélenchon and numerous others in the Popular Front that were actively and consistently protesting against Israel. The argument that you're presenting sounds kind of silly. I don't want to undermine what you're trying to say here, but it sounds kind of silly because, like, you make it seem as though these leaders in the Western world, after turning a blind eye to these atrocities that we all saw, that we were all yelling about for a year and a half, almost 2 years, basically turned around and out of the kindness of their own hearts, decided, yeah, now is the time actually for a symbolic gesture. It's very strange. And it also is, it's also almost, it feels like you have this bipartisan fealty, like non-ideological fealty to anyone who is in government, no matter who it is, whether it be Macron, liberal, or Donald Trump, who is a far-right reactionary. These are all people that actually decided on their own volition, and the unimaginable pressure presented towards them that could potentially even undermine democracy, not in America, but certainly in places like France, in places like Italy. I just don't agree with this vision that these leaders are completely apathetic and only shifted their position out of pure Machiavellian pragmatism. I agree that the activism signal boosted. That's clear as day, but I feel like you're overestimating the role it had in actual consequential policy. I like that you refuse to say what you truly believe, because I think you also recognize how embarrassing it is. Yes, world leaders are completely apathetic. They murder thousands with one command. What do you mean? They're not like regular people like you and I, okay? The notion that Macron actually is not apathetic, but simply finally came to his own conclusions, and that's why he offered a symbolic, conditional gesture of state recognition of Palestine after 2 years of genocide. It just happened to be so perfectly timed, you know? He just came to his own senses right then and there and did it unilaterally. It's ridiculous. Just say it out loud. You think politicians are actually good people, no matter what their ideological background is, and they actually make these choices not because of the unimaginable amount of pressure, but because they listen to their hearts. It just happened to be the most opportune moment to listen to their heart. And even then, you have decided to obviously concede on the framing that you said, that the public pressure coming from leftist opposition and public pressure that grew beyond just simply leftist activism or whatever was not as consequential. That was your immediate position. Now you're saying, okay, maybe it was a little bit consequential, but I think these politicians have kindness in their heart ultimately. There is no way that you can describe Israel's dramatic unpopularity swing by simply assuming that politicians actually decided it was Israel was now unpopular. It's ridiculous. How do you account for broad consciousness swinging against Israel and Israel becoming a fucking pariah state over the course of the last 2 years without thinking about the unlimited amount of mobilization that took place against Israel? That makes no sense. Of course it was the mobilization that mattered.
In years since you've known a single day of true peace, but now at last, not only for Israelis, but also for Palestinians and for many others, the long and painful nightmare is finally over. And as the dust settles, the smoke fades, the debris is removed, and the ashes cleaned from the air, the day that breaks on a region transformed and a beautiful and much brighter future appear suddenly within your reach. This is now a very exciting time for Israel and for the entire Middle East, because all across the Middle East, the forces of chaos, terror, and ruin that have plagued the region for decades now stand weakened, isolated, and totally defeated. A new coalition of proud and responsible nations is emerging, and because of us, the enemies of all civilization are in retreat. Thanks to the bravery and incredible skill of the Israeli Defense Forces and Operation Rising Lion.
Perfect example of engaging. A lot of the protests were obstructive. Any got in the way of people who had nothing to do with the argument, making their first impressions annoyance and inconvenience. No, protesting is assembling in a public space to show your ideals and sway more people to your side or inform the people of an issue. It has nothing to do with actively obstructing other people and becoming a nuisance. Oh, dude. Oh, I think this is Matt Iglesias, right? Is this Matty Iglesias in the chat? Is that what? Well, at least he agrees that the DNC needs restructuring because they've been dropping the ball for the past decade. It's not about the number of deportations, it's about the aggression they use to go after them, plus how public Trump's chasing of illegals is. People are roadblocking him wherever they can, which I think is slowing his role. If ICE had full cooperation, I'm sure the numbers would be higher. I'm not a regular viewer here. I think 99% of what you say is trash. I just think it's important to hear all sides of the spectrum. This has to be a DNC op? No, this is like an ultra lib, I think. Like an ultra lib. Yes, protest is not meant to be disruptive. You're right. You're so right about that. Protest is supposed to be done quietly in your living room. Yeah. Broad awareness. Like even mass arrests that take place play a formative role in changing and shaping collective consciousness on issues. You know, mass sit-ins, for example. The type of liberal that this person represents is the type of liberal that also believes in the whitewash legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., who unironically also did engage in acts of civil disobedience and disruptions. Okay? So even from your standard of like what it means to do good and successful types of protests, even in the whitewashed approach to the civil rights struggle, you're still at odds with the way that you present how protests are supposed to be implemented. Just so you understand. Protests are always supposed to be disruptive. The entire purpose of it is to create broad awareness, to put your body on the line, to make sure that people understand that the government is ruthless and brutal when people are actually saying things that you might actually agree with. Okay? Civil disobedience doesn't have to impede an average uninvolved person. This guy's looking at the situation of segregation and going, honestly, why are they actually doing mass sit-ins? Like, people just want to get food. Why are people... Why are people engaging in like work stoppages? This is just disrupting the regular flow of commerce for average people that are uninitiated and uninvolved. Please stop protesting. Are you claiming that domestic protests stop the direct genocide? I'm claiming that the international mobilization from working class individuals all around the world, specifically initially started by Palestinian activists, okay? Palestinians living in diaspora, created broad awareness around this issue at a time when the mainstream media refused. Wait, what? Because the Palestinians recorded at Lamau, not because of your useless protest? Wait, what? That's what I said. Without the bravery and the resilience and the steadfastness of Palestinians that put their lives on the line to record their own demise to those who would dare to pay attention, no one would know exactly what's going on. No one would know what's going on at all. You are arguing against the position that I do not hold. My point is, every step you take in the right direction matters in ways that you can't even comprehend in that initial moment. Okay? That's it. That's it.
Guys, central casting. Let's put him in a movie. Look at him. Great job. And my people loved working with you. Loved it. They worked so well together. But many of Iran's top terrorists, including nuclear scientists and commanders, have been extinguished from this earth. And with Operation Midnight Hammer, boy, that's a great name for that, what we did. Last June, the United States military flew 7 of those beautiful B-2 bombers. They look so beautiful all of a sudden. They were always I thought they were pretty planes.
Well, you know, HasanAbi's winning is a chat chock full of haters. I know that is the sign of someone who's converting people to their viewpoint. I don't think that that's the best sign, honestly. Trump has a lot of haters too. Well, I guess he is converting people. But no, my point should be reassessing how to actually be effective rather than patting ourselves on the back by claiming our extremely marginal protests were effective at all. Trump's narcissism probably played a bigger role. Okay. The reason why I started addressing the importance of protesting and how putting your body on the line mattered in terms of kickstarting broad awareness, okay, broad awareness initiatives, is because Trump's narcissism would not have caused him to recognize that there was even a problem at all for Israel here. But he very openly said, Israel's lost the world. Israel is losing the world. We're going to fix that. And the only reason why Israel fucking started losing the world is because, once again, the Palestinians were filming how Israel was slaughtering them, mutilating them, murdering them, and how people saw that, were horrified by that, and were taken to the fucking streets. Okay? What are we talking about? If these things were not consequential, and writing it off as marginal is so fucking stupid because you're doing the other side of like what ContraPoints claims, okay? God damn, some of you leftists are such classic fucking doomers, such unimaginable nihilists for no fucking reason. At a time when someone was behaving in a doomer fashion, I was trying to explain that, like, your voices do matter, okay? It might come across as marginal, it might come across as inconsequential, okay? But it's not. It moves the needle in the appropriate direction, little by little. Because if it wasn't consequential, these fucking assholes would not be working to arrest you, okay? This isn't to say, you know, pat yourselves on the back. Our job here is done. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just beginning. Okay? But every now and then, you also have to recognize that these sorts of initiatives actually swung the opinion, the opinion of the Western world broadly against Israel. Jesus Christ. Like, please. I've been at this game for 12 years. I've seen with my own two eyes how dramatically the public opinion changed on Israel. How dramatically it swung in the opposite direction. So when you guys come in here and you say, nah, that doesn't matter. Like, what, you think people came to their own conclusions on their own? Like, no, they didn't. Every single person that you talk to directly and convinced to see the truth is another person that can go talk to 10 other people, okay? This is how change happens. I understand that human life is finite and we have horse blinders when it comes to dramatic shifts in public consciousness, when it comes to like change happening, but every little bit matters. That's it. And if it didn't fucking matter, these people would not be actively trying to stamp it out, actively trying to harm you to get you to shut the fuck up.
No idea they could do what they did. In fact, we just ordered 28 more of them. A little updated version. We ordered a whole pile of them.
Yes, this is a better take. The main reason this ended was the cost of continued military operations was too high. Part of that is the diplomatic cost internationally, and the part of it is the direct resistance. All of it led to Israel and America realizing the cost outweighed any gains. Yes, make no mistake. I've been saying this since day one. Eventually, there will come a moment where the American administration that has been full-throated in its support for Israel will have to recalculate how much they can let Israel get away with. We are there now, it seems. If this ceasefire holds, and it seems like Trump will push for it to hold, and obviously the job is not, it blows my mind that you saw so many people change their minds over the course of the past 2 years. Hassan, if you believe public opinion matters to this degree, then you're implicitly conceding that liberal capitalistic states are in some way responsive to popular will, at least to some degree. I don't disagree with that, but I'm surprised to hear it coming from you. What are you talking about? Do you think I'm like some fucking vanguardist guy or something? Like, what do you mean? Okay, so you were wrong about your opinion. Yes, of course I think public opinion matters. The reason why I think public opinion fucking matters is because I understand that it makes it harder. It makes it much harder for the administration to continue along in the way that they, to continue along in the ways in which they want to continue. It certainly wasn't mainstream news that was covering what was going on in Gaza with honesty. It wasn't the politicians. So how the fuck did so many Americans come to that realization on their own? Look what happened when the Democrats ignored public opinion. They lost. Jesus Christ. Even if I was a vanguardist, I also analyze that the current material conditions are not ripe for any sort of like mobilization. We do not even have labor militancy in this country. We barely have trade unions in this country. The fuck do you mean we have a Marxist-Leninist vanguard? We have nothing. You have to recognize and work within the confines, work within what you have.
Almost 100 other planes went with them, including fighter jets. We had 52 tankers, big, beautiful.
From the way my Israeli grandparents are acting, I think this could be real. They keep talking about how Hamas can't be left still existing. Israelis really wanted this to be the complete end of Gaza, and the troops actually moving out and allowing Palestinians back into the north shows this isn't purely aesthetic. The political landscape in Israel is going to be about how to destroy Hamas. They won't give up this genocide easily. I agree. For sure. But we'll see how we get there because, again, if America is recalculating the cost-benefit analysis here and realizing that, like, Israel's become too much of a fucking pariah, so it's getting in its own way, and it's therefore getting in America's way of whatever kind of grand design they have for the region, with Israel playing the jockey role here, okay, Israel controlling that grand design, they have to basically tell them, stop for a little bit, please. You're getting at, you're going too crazy mode, okay? You blew up Doha. That's fucking insane. We have thousands of fucking troops there, and you just struck the capital of a oil-rich regional power that is under a security arrangement with us, perhaps the most consequential. That's where U.S. Central Command is. And Israel thought they could get away with fucking blowing up Doha after using the Trump administration to bring all of the fucking negotiators into one room. Qatar has taken hits twice now at the behest of Israel and America. Once from Iran and once from Israel directly. It's crazy. Nah, libs think the Dems losing was your fault, but somehow international protesting is marginal. Yeah, it's just people thinking that people that want to be right. That's all this is. You're right, Israel is too rabid, maybe, but we are still benefiting from the arms industry, literally destroying Syrian sovereignty, which was their biggest W in the last 2 years, and did a genocide for which there will be no Nuremberg or accountability. Maybe our movement should move to prosecute those complicit harder rather than saying our protests achieved a lot. Did I ever fucking say that these things are not true? Or did I ever say that we shouldn't be moving to try and prosecute these people? Of course. Of course. That's why I stress the importance that, like, this job is not done. This is not over until Palestinians have sovereignty, until Palestinians have emancipation. What the fuck? I don't know where you're coming from, man.
Brand new tankers that were loading them up 4 or 5 times. They've traveled 37 hours back and forth. Think of that.
That's why I always say America does not hate Israel enough. Okay? That's true. It's just true. There are plenty of other countries where they hate Israel a lot more. America has fallen behind.
But we had tankers all over the sky for all the other planes. We had the F-22s, the F-35s, F-16s. We had a hell of a lot of planes. So we had 52 gas stations in the sky. That's what they call them. I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to be flying one of them. We have our great General Raisin Cane right here. General, stand up. This guy. What a general.
Like, it just blows my mind that there's Americans, maybe Arabs living in diaspora, but certainly not Palestinian, I suspect, being like, oh, these protests are marginal. Yeah, okay. Go talk to the fucking Palestinians in Gaza if they think the protests are marginal. They don't think the protests are marginal at all. Like, what are we talking about? You got like little babies in Gaza holding up signs being like, we stand in solidarity with the fucking student protesters that are getting arrested. And you got white Americans in the chat being like, dude, this shit doesn't fucking matter. Of course, every little bit matters. Okay? Every little bit matters. I'm just saying maybe he's an Arab in diaspora because his name is Monkey D. Houthi. Okay? That's the only reason why I said that. I don't even think Arabs in diaspora feel that way. They also exist in a world where they have been declared public enemy number 1 for like the last 25 fucking years. What are we talking about? So even they cannot comprehend how much of a public attitude shift has happened on the issue of Israel. I was just giving him an out before he goes, I'm not a white dude from fucking Kentucky. I'm actually Arab or something, you know? Doesn't change the reality. It's just he's still wrong.
I asked General Kane, I said, you know, we're having problems. And I was in Washington, and I asked, how long would it take to defeat ISIS? And my Washington generals told me, 3, 4, maybe 5 years, sir. I said, I don't get it. We got the best equipment in the world. Why? So I flew to Iraq, and I met with a man named Kane. He said, what's your first name? He said, they call me Raisin, sir. I said, wait a minute. Your name is Raisin Kane? I've been looking for you.
Shouldn't we phase out blanket statements and just say the majority of Israel? Because I'm sure the protests in Israel don't support this. That being said, the state of Israel has been violating human rights since the 40s. So are they an exception to blanket statements? Yeah, I abide by the public polling and public approval for the death and destruction in Gaza amongst the Jewish Israeli society. And they are almost in unison in support of the famine and the mass atrocities that have taken place. Okay? They know it's happening. They don't give a shit. They have been polled on this issue on numerous occasions. Okay?
For a long time. You gotta be kidding. So they told me 3, 4, 5 years to defeat ISIS. And I sit down with him and I say, why is it? I flew there in the dark of night. I landed. I'll never forget it. It's quite a trip. I'm glad I made it because I met him. I said, could I ask you, General? I come down. He's standing with another general and a sergeant. Everybody was like central casting. They could go into a movie right now. Between him and you guys over here, we could get rich making movies, okay?
Who the fuck is that sumo wrestler guy? What's his name? Stephen Chung? He's Trump's social media guy. I love him. He's one of my favorites in the admin. He's incredible. He is a sizable lad.
And they got along so great. That's the beautiful thing, that your military and our military, Bibi, got along so great. But what I was told by the television generals in Washington, we have the best equipment in the world. Why is it taking so long? And they said, 4 years. I said, so let me ask you, Raisin, how long would it take you to defeat ISIS? Sir, we can do it in 3 weeks, but you'll probably have some time left over. I said, you got to be kidding. What the hell are you talking about? They said 4 years. I said, well, sir, look, it's not my place to say, but you're asking me the question. What you have to do is you hit him from the west, you hit him from the north, you hit him from the south, you hit him above, you hit him below. I said, so why didn't they do it? And he didn't want to speak badly of his superiors, which is hard to believe they were his superiors. It should have been the other way around a long time ago, because he's the one that did Operation Hammer. It was flawless. It was flawless. It was absolutely flawless. And I said, so you really think you can do it in 4 weeks? Yes, sir, 100%. You have to do it differently than they were doing it. They were using one base, and it was hundreds of miles away. And he says, we have all these portable bases all over the Middle East. And they didn't want to use them because they didn't want to offend the country where the portable, they wouldn't have even known what the hell the planes were going up, right? They wouldn't have known. But he said, no, they didn't want to defend anybody, offend anybody. And but we can do it in 4 weeks. I said, you sure about that? I'm going to call you back. I'll call you back on Monday. I'm going back to Washington. But you think 4 weeks? Yes, sir, I think we can do it in 4 weeks. We'll have time left over. So I call him on Monday. I said, you think you can do it? 4 weeks. I said, go ahead and do it. He did it. I'll tell you, he did it in 4 weeks, less than 4 weeks. So, General, stand up, please. Again.
Also, Kane is a venture capitalist.
This is a real general. This is not a television general. He doesn't want to go on television. He doesn't want to go on television. I said the other guys love being on television. So we dropped 14 bombs on Iran's key nuclear facilities, totally, as I said originally, obliterating them. And that's been confirmed, and everybody understands it. Together we stopped the #1 state sponsor of terror from obtaining the world's most dangerous weapons. And if you think about it, if we didn't do that, and assuming we made the same deal that we have today, there'd be a dark cloud over this deal. And #1, it wouldn't happen because the other Arab and Muslim nations really wouldn't feel comfortable making the deal that we have now, right? if Iran had that nuclear weapon that they were about 2 months away from having. They would have had it in 2 months or maybe less than that. They were right at, this was our last shot. They looked at it for 22 years. This was our last shot. The pilots told me that. They said, 22 years, sir. They looked at it. Our predecessors looked, they studied it. 3 times a year would do drills on that exact attack. And boy, did they get it right. But let's assume they didn't, and let's assume there was large-scale nuclear weapons in the hands of Iran. We couldn't be here today. Even if we signed the deal, which we couldn't do because a lot of people would not want to have anything to do with it, we took a big cloud off of the Middle East and off of Israel. And it was my honor to help. But isn't it true, though, that can you imagine the same, let's assume, Bibi, the same documents, we had everything the same, but you had somebody out there that was, in the opinion of everybody, all powerful in the Middle East. They took a big hit, didn't they? Didn't they take a big hit? Boy, oh boy. They got hit from one side, from the other. And you know, it would be great if we could make a peace deal with them. And I think that's maybe, would you be happy with that? Wouldn't it be nice, I think?
Not as many people applauding for that one.
I think they're tired. Somebody said, sir, they're starting their nuclear program again. I said, let me tell you something. They're not starting anything. They want to survive. The last thing they want to do is start digging holes again in mountains that just got blown up and start, they're not doing, they want to survive, okay? But I think we have a chance. Steve, you, and I think Jared, come on, I'll call you back for another one. We always bring Jared when we want to get that deal closed. We bring Jared, but Steve, you and Jared and the General and Pete and Marco, you'll get that deal done easy. I think that'll be easy. But first, we have to get Russia done. We got to get that one done. If you don't mind, Steve, let's focus on Russia first, all right? We'll get it done. In Lebanon, the dagger of Hezbollah, long aimed at Israel's throat, has been totally shattered. My administration is actively supporting the new.
I think some of the most consequential aspects of this past 2 years has been the incredible deterrent that both the Palestinian resistance has presented, making this genocide as costly as possible, making it so that like Israeli reservists did not want to return at all, making it as difficult as possible, the deterrent from the Ansar Allah in terms of shutting down an entire fucking port, okay? Shutting down an entire port in Israel, and then the deterrent from the IRGC as well, the Iranian ballistic missiles that in a matter of 12 days were able to virtually deplete the entirety of Israel's stockpiles and American stockpiles too. Stuff like this seems irrelevant or silly, but it's not. It's not irrelevant at all. It's actually very consequential. That is the only time when Israel has been forced to stand down and forced to back down. Because they've shown once, time and time again, that the only time that they ever recalculate whether or not they can go as hard as they want to is if they feel like they're getting punished too much. That is something to always remember and something to always consider.
President of Lebanon in his mission to permanently disarm Hezbollah's terror brigades. He's doing very well. And build a thriving state at peace with its neighbors. And you're very much in favor of that, I know. And it's good things are happening there, really good things. And with this week's ceasefire, we've achieved the most challenging breakthrough maybe ever. I mean, I've never seen anything like, I've been involved in a lot of success. I have never seen anything like what's going on today all over the world. People are dancing in the streets, not just in Israel. They're dancing in the streets of countries that would have never danced in the street about what's happening today. They're dancing in those streets.
He loves talking about dancing people.
This difficult war has now ended. You know, some people say 3,000 years. Some people say 500 years, whatever it is. It's the granddaddy of them all. And in an unprecedented achievement, virtually the entire region has endorsed the plan that Gaza will be immediately demilitarized, that Hamas will be disarmed, and Israel's security will no longer be threatened. in any way, shape, or form. So Israel, with our help, has won all that they can by force of arms. You've won. I mean, you've won. Now it's time to translate these victories against terrorists on the battlefield into the ultimate prize of peace and prosperity for the entire Middle East. It's about time you were able to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Mr. Opposition Leader. I said he's a very nice opposition leader. I think, no, he's a nice man. Bibi, he's a nice man. He knows what he's doing, right? No, he's a very nice guy. Well, see, now you can be a little bit nicer, Bibi, because you're not at war anymore, Bibi. But only by embracing the opportunity.
Yeah, by the way, you're the nice guy he's talking about. The nice guy he's talking about right here. Let me find this quote real quick. Lapid, I say to all those who demonstrated against Israel, I am the leader of the opposition, and I tell you, you were deceived. Now that the war has stopped, you have time and a chance to go and learn the facts. The truth is there was no genocide, no intentional starvation. Such strong opposition, man.
Opportunities of this moment can we achieve our goal of ensuring that the horrors of recent years will never happen again. You don't want to have to go through this again. 8 years ago, I came to this region on a very special first trip abroad as the President of the United States. I came here very early at your request. I addressed the leaders of the Arab and Muslim world gathered in Saudi Arabia and said that it was time to build a future free of the grip of extremism and terror. And interestingly, right now, as soon as I'm finished, I'm quite late. You've kept me quite late between opposition leaders and Bibi's.
Yeah, this is why those banking on the Israeli opposition convinced very few. Yair Lapid, head of Israel's opposition, openly stated, those who demonstrated against Israel in London, Rome, Paris were deceived by propaganda. The truth is there was no genocide, no intentional starvation. Yes, to the chatters that it's like not being genocidal is a losing position. Yes, it literally is. The only people who are anti-genocide in that fucking Knesset were packed up and forcibly removed from the Knesset. So yes, you're not wrong. It's crazy. Anyway, I'm going to move on from this speech. I can't listen to him anymore.